Well, good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this panel discussion on the road to the digital economy, the role of blockchain. And it's a great pleasure for us at the IMF to be co-hosting this panel with the Ministry of Finance. We would like to thank the authorities of the United Arab Emirates and the organizers of the World Government Summit for inviting us to participate. I'm stating the obvious in saying that technology is transforming every aspect of our daily lives. And a key emerging technology in this area is blockchain. Blockchain, I think we've all heard of it. It's the technology that actually underlies Bitcoin. It enables transfers of tokens on the blockchain to be made on a peer-to-peer basis without the use of intermediaries, and gives each participant on the blockchain a complete and up-to-date record of all transactions that have taken place on the blockchain. Blockchain is now being used in a wide variety of applications that go beyond Bitcoin, in both the financial sector and in government. And these emerging and exciting use cases are the topic of our panel discussion today. We have a very distinguished group of panelists who I will introduce shortly. But first, I would like to introduce, with pleasure, our keynote speaker, Mr. Siim Sikkut, the Chief Information Officer of the Government of Estonia, who's going to set the stage for us. Mr. Sikkut is in his capacity as Chief Information Officer, he sets strategy and policy, launches and steers strategic objectives in the areas of digital government and society. And he was one of the founders of Estonia's groundbreaking e-residency program. Mr. Sikkut will speak on the topic of how a country can go digital.
Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon. I'm a bit sorry that my voice is lost somewhere between time zones and Tallinn and Dubai here, but I hope it works enough. Thank you for the opportunity, first of all, to speak a bit about what we have done, and I think I was asked to give a bit of perhaps even wider context and end up on a note on blockchain, introducing then the rest of the discussion. But yes, we have been, for many good reasons, on track of trying to make the most of digital technology in our government for the last 20 years. And I'd say for various good reasons, in a sense that, I mean, we, first of all, today we couldn't imagine our life without it. None of us, I guess, will. But second, it's also that we've been driven by a very clear goal, and that's been efficiency. In a sense that we are a country of 1.3 million people, but we still want to be and need to be a fully fledged country with everything that it comes with. So yes, that has been driving us that we have to do the best we can with the resources we have, and that's what led us to experimenting with digital tools already late 90s and onwards, when internet was just in the first place. So and these experiments worked, they proved the value, so it became conscious effort that is all the way to today. And I mean, just to give you perhaps a bit of glimpse, and some of you have probably heard me or us speak about it every now and then, but what does it mean? Let's say today we reached a point when, at least from citizen, from entrepreneur point of view, from a user point of view, everything you want to get done with the government, you can do it online. So you don't have to, because again, the paper option still exists for the time being. But yes, if it's any application for any benefit, you're setting up a company, you're doing some reporting or red tape duties for the government, anything you can imagine in this regard, you can do yourself from Dubai here, being in your home, wherever you happen to be, because the online option for that exists. Now, we jokingly say, but it's actually true, that the only things you can't do online are the things that we consider high risk, like getting married. So you still have to be there in person to say the yes. But beyond that, all the rest, you just go on with your life. And the point is, so yes, it's been built on quite a few factors. I mean, first of all, we've made use of a strong digital identity from the very beginning. So we couldn't imagine building up all those services or a national electronic health record or even all the way to online voting, which we do for parliament, if identity was not there. So what we have seen is that things like identity, essentially, people talk about government as a platform, or platforms in government, shared platforms today. We stumbled upon this approach very early, and we were very big fans and supporters of the platform approach. And we see that that actually takes the government or any organization ahead much faster. If you put in place some building blocks that any kind of agencies, any kind of departments will make use of because they need them. For example, authentication for identity. Everybody needs to trust their users. Whatever service you put online, if it's anything personalized, anything more concrete than that, then you need to have some form of authentication. A common way of identity solves it for all. Then really the agency who now goes about digitalization, they don't have to figure out again how to trust the user. They just reuse and plug and play the components that have been built before. Another sort of big platform we have made quite a bit of use of has been for data integration and sharing. So we built up a common way to exchange any sort of data within different parts of government, and we call it the Setup X road. But the point is that means that we can now, from user point of view, make any interactions happen seamlessly and in a truly sense. So, for example, if I go to declare my taxes, it takes in Estonia 3 minutes because all different data are pulled together from different databases and parts of government for me to have an easier, faster, seamless interaction like that. And again, a shared platform allows it to happen because as different partners want to and need to build those experiences, they can just reuse the same platform. So the platform approach is a very big part of it. Secondly, if we are asked, so what does it take to really go fast digitally? We are also saying that often regulation helps. And we might be a bit sort of, weird with this, because usually people say that regulation is more an obstacle. And so yes, we've had to kill quite a bit of regulation and change it to be more enabling ourselves. But we have also thought about, but hey, can we bring in some principles, make it into basically a principle of law, and through that push digitization? So example I can give you is based on our identity, we can give digital signatures. So at home, any sort of signing I do for a contract, for a government application, my prime minister signing bills for the parliament, they do it with a digital identity because we have a very simple legal rule. Digital signature given with the right identity token is equal to my handwritten signature. A principle like that made a whole lot of difference because that meant that now we could really bring any interaction fully online. Digital signatures were legit. Nobody could say no in court. Or another example of a principle like that, we brought in the notion of once only. Some countries name it differently, tell it once, tell us once, whatever like that. But the whole point is that in our rule, in our law, it says we should not ask user, the citizen, the entrepreneur, for any data again that the government, some part of government already has. Instead, if some part of government has it, we have to reuse in the backend. Because we have also the integration platform, X-Road. We have to reuse it, and through that, what the effect is that all the interactions from user, from people's point of view, become faster, simpler. Perhaps they don't need to be there at all. They can be automatic because we just reuse information. We don't ask you again. And so again, this once only rule, once we brought it in, that really forced different parts of government to go more seamless, to go more user-centric, to become better in delivering digitally. So we have really tried to see that to use principles, regulation like that to push us in certain directions. And I guess the third thing I can bring out, and I'm sure it will resonate well in the panel and in the setting here, is we've been quite happy to try things out. And this sort of, if you ask me and if you ask, I guess, my colleagues in my team, then obviously we are not experimenting near enough as we should. But if I just look at the road, we've been experimenting well enough to at least sort of, try out new technologies, new approaches, new ways of doing things in terms of the government processes. And that experimentation spirit has led us to actually doing more with technology. So the example I can give is actually leads to the very much blockchain era. So we started playing around with, let's say, something very similar to blockchain technology already way in 2008, because we had some researchers who came with ideas about, let's say, distributed ledgers and how to make use of them. Since 2012, we've employed the solutions in our government setting. So we use blockchain technology for a very specific reason. For now, we use it to keep data integrity. So to make sure that the records are immutable. That, for example, the logbooks about who accesses your data, we do publish it for you as a citizen, an account about, let's say, which government official has accessed what data of you. That's a trust mechanism. How do you trust that log? Well, that's again where blockchain comes to the game, for example. Health registry, again, we keep, for example, metadata of that in blockchain mode for the reasons that this way you can be sure that your blood type in your medical health record is really the true one. Because again, if it's changed without authorization, flags would go up. Long story short, why we started in this, I mean, it wasn't sure back in 2012 or even 8 that that could actually work. It wasn't sure that it actually might be useful as a technology, but we were happy to try. And even all the way to today, if we look at the next stage, for example, there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. We have tried to bring the same experimentation spirit to these issues to say that, look, even if many people still doubt that AI is only emerging and is it sort of useful yet, we think it is enough to start trying and do more with it. So the experimentation thing, I think it's easier said than done in many ways. Scaling from experiments is another story, in a sense that in how in government you can go faster from if a pilots and experiments work out, how do you then mainstream across the government? It's been a bit easier for us because we've aligned the governance very well for that, and we're small enough too. I know that Dubai here has a lot of experience how to scale really fast here as well. But my point is that I think that sort of mindset and spirit goes a long way to saying that, look, let's try things out. And so instead of talking and trying to figure out the perfect solutions, let's try stuff out in a way that let's see if it works. If it works, let's improve, let's scale, let's start making use of it in fully. So these are some of the perhaps thoughts in a scrambled way about how we've been doing things. So yes, building up shared platforms so that the whole digitization in the whole of government goes faster. You making use of rules and principles to enforce that and force the government in certain directions, be more user-centric, for example. And finally, experimentation. And the last bit, of course, again, it doesn't have to be said in UAE here, but the last bit takes leadership. And we've been very graced with the political and administrative leaders who have been not only willing to go along with the plans of engineers, but pushed us to do more. And I think that takes us a long way down exactly making everyday benefits of the tech we have around us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siim. Siim, that was anything but scrambled. It was very comprehensive and very informative. And it set the stage very nicely for our panel discussion. I know, Siim, that you have another panel that you have to leave for momentarily. But before we launch into the panel discussion, let me join everyone in thanking you for your keynote.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
For our panel discussion, we have 4 very distinguished panelists who it is my pleasure to introduce now. We have Mr. Nelson Chow, the Chief FinTech Officer of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. We have Her Excellency, Dr. Aisha bin Bashir, the Director General of Smart Dubai. We have Ms. Therese Couture, the Director of the Treasury Operations Department of the World Bank, and Mr. Promoth Mangat, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Finabler in the UAE Exchange. What I would like to do first is to ask each of our panelists to share with us the use cases that their organization is making of blockchain, the benefits that it offers, and the challenges that it presents. Maybe we can start with Nelson from the HKMA.
Sure. We set up our office, FinTech office, back in 2016. I think you all know that Hong Kong is very close to China. Over the past 5 years, we've seen dramatic transformation in the payment space, and then a lot of these players are also coming to Hong Kong. So we set up this office to make sure that we are ahead of the curve in terms of technology. So we hire specialists, and in 2016 we started 4 proof of concepts. One is digital identity. The second one is property valuation, and also central bank digital currency. The last one is trade finance. We follow up with the trade finance project because after we build the 4 prototypes, and banks are more eager to look into that, because I think you all know that blockchain is best for an environment that is untrusted. In the trade finance world, you all know that there are so many stakeholders. They are normally untrusted. And also for the SME, the smaller players, they do not have enough financing. So in this space, banks are more willing to commercialize the prototype into a product. So in 2018, which is just a couple of months ago, we have the banking consortium of 12 banks have launched the eTrade Connect trade finance platform based on Hyperledger. So it's one of the biggest in Asia, and since then we are trying to connect to other jurisdictions like Europe, We.Trade, and China. They are also building certain blockchain-related trade finance platform. So we can follow up with more details later on.
Thank you very much. Pramod, maybe we can turn to you now, and maybe you could share with us how Finabler and the UAE Exchange are using blockchain.
So on the cross-border payment space, there's a lot of excitement for blockchain, and in all fairness, that's real the potential the technology can offer. So in the last 1 decade or so, with the kind of the technological advancements that we have seen, where industries have converged, experiences have become seamless and connected, payments has not really caught up to bring that experience in a very seamless and embedded manner. So that's where blockchain is looked as a solution that can bring all those things going forward. So the way we have looked at Finabler is that we have analyzed the anatomy of the payments in 3 aspects. The first on the sourcing and origination, the second is on the processing or settlement, and the third one is the last mile distribution. So what we have done on the settlement, or where we could bring some immediate use cases that we are seeing, specifically where you are able to move to an distributed ledgers or trust-based, non-corruptible way of transferring information. Because understand the complexity of payments is you have got multiple intermediaries sitting between the settlement, which makes it very complex. So though we have not been able to attain the transfer of assets using blockchain, what we have attained at this point of time is messaging the transaction from point A to point B. So as we speak now, we have gone live with Siam Commercial Bank in Thailand, where our messaging of transactions completely moved to blockchain using RippleNet as the transaction protocol that we have gone live. One of the things that we have learned is that since we have got myriad number of systems, interoperability becomes a very important challenge. So one common set of standards and protocol is must. Coming on to the origination, what we have done is specifically on the KYC or onboarding of the clients. That's the next complexity, because this is a regulated business, especially from a compliance and regulatory manner. You want to make sure that your systems are knowingly or unknowingly not used for any untowards or illegal purposes. So onboarding is the next thing that we have done. So where we are trying to using tokens among our 44 countries across the world, where we exchange the KYC information using our own tokens that we issue of exchange the KYC information. One interesting use case that we have done on the last mile, though we have not been able to attach, because since we have got large chunk of the global population whom we deal with are unbanked, we have not been able to create substantially onto the last mile. But one success story that we have is that we have gone into the international gifting as a mean of transferring money. So with international gifting in place, we have gone live with the retailers in Philippines and India, both online and offline, using blockchain as the underlying technology of transferring the gift coupons instead of transferring money plain vanilla. So we are seeing different kind of use cases because we feel that the technology has the potential. You need to do building blocks. You cannot go and solve it as one sword and make it happen, because it's complicated with the kind of intermediaries in between. It's complicated with the regulatory and compliance in the movement of money. So what we have taken is 3 use cases, and we are seeing success, and we are quite excited that can help us to build the next level of blocks from there.
Thank you very much, Pramod. Therese, for many of you may know that the IMF and the World Bank are located right across from each other on 19th Street in Washington. And looking from across the street, Therese, I see that the World Bank is doing a lot of exciting things with blockchain. Could you maybe share with us what exactly the bank is doing in this area?
Yes, I'd love to do that. I'll try to say in 3 minutes what would take me 3 hours, but I'll give it a shot. So as Ross just said, the World Bank and the World Bank Group are doing many projects in the area of blockchain across various use cases. So one actual transaction we did using blockchain was the issuance of the world's first global legally binding bond issued and managed throughout its life cycle on a blockchain, a private and permissioned blockchain. And so to do this, we partnered with the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and they were heavily involved. They did the development of the register on the blockchain platform. So that was their role as well as fiscal agent. And we selected the Australian market and the CBA because of the mature culture of innovation that they have demonstrated over the recent years. We issued a bond of $110 million Australian dollars to 7 investors. And basically what you end up with is the World Bank being the issuer, interacting in this register on blockchain technology, directly interacting with the investors. And so it's a different channel, of course, than the financial market infrastructure that exists today. We also partnered with Microsoft because we needed technology experts to review the code and ensure that the functionality was properly developed. And so this was a great opportunity to learn. We really did this to learn. We have a culture of innovation at the World Bank, and we also issue $50 to $60 billion in bonds in the capital markets on an annual basis. So it was important for us to understand what blockchain technology will bring as it starts to change things in financial markets. Across the World Bank and the World Bank Group, there are many other use cases. We are looking at, there's a program for ID for development to bring digital proof of identification to over 1 billion people on the planet who don't have that at this point. We have use cases for land registry, for supply chain, for financial inclusion. There's an interesting project in Kenya to bring micro-pension to informal workers there, for 14 million informal workers. Another interesting project, which I'll just briefly touch upon, was work that the World Bank did with the government of Haiti, bringing the farmers who are farming avocados and mangoes. It's interesting, you can now Google it to find more information. But we were connecting the farmers with efficient markets. And the project looked at, first of all, streamlining and bringing efficiencies across the entire supply chain. Once all of the data points and efficiencies have been discovered, the next phase is to bring all of this on blockchain. And what it is doing, it is bringing visibility into the provenance of the product, and as well as the pricing across the chain. And by doing so, it has increased significantly the revenue that goes to the farmers. And so by bringing visibility of market data, the farmers are able to extract a fair price. And so what we have found initially are the opportunities to bring efficiencies, reduce cost, and also the power of bringing visibility into information so that consumers and participants have trust and can better operate their business models.
Thank you very much, Therese. Your Excellency, I know that Dubai has a very ambitious blockchain strategy, including through Smart Dubai, of which you're the Director General. Could you kindly share with us what Dubai is doing in this area and what you have planned for the future?
Sure. As all of you know today that all these new technologies without a strong leadership won't see any light as an implementable solution. And we are blessed here in Dubai that we have Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, who is a strong believer in ICT. He started because he believed that ICT is not only driving efficiency for government, but also to improve happiness and well-being for people and improve their journeys in any city. So he started the idea of e-government. He was pioneer to implement the idea of e-government early 2000, and then smart government, and now with the smart city initiative. And the idea is to lead all this digital transformation in our city. And one of the functions that we do in this office is to scan the emerging technologies that they are the tools of the fourth industrial revolution. and like a blockchain, but also like AI, big data, IoT, and see how we can implement it here in Dubai to add value to our people. And to accelerate the implementation of such emerging technologies, we need to have a strategy. Here we're in 2016, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, the Crown Prince of Dubai, launched the Dubai blockchain strategy to have 100% of applicable services in government to be implemented in 2020. We know that blockchain is not the solution for everything, but wherever we can implement it, it is applicable to be implemented, we will go ahead with it. Our strategy span on 3 tracks. The first one is to implement the technology itself. Today, when we talk about the blockchain, there are many protocols to implement a blockchain, whether it is the Ripples, the Hyperledger, or whatever. So we need to understand how these technologies are maturing and to develop a proper use cases for each one of these implementation. Alhamdulillah, in Dubai, we have many use cases, almost 20 use cases, many of them real implementation, but also a scaling, such as settlement and reconciliation. We thought we can gain 30% efficiency from implementing blockchain in that functionality. It brought 100% from 45 days doing a settlement and reconciliation between bank accounts to 0. And other implementation around land sector, economy sector, and health sector. When it comes to also industry creation, we want Dubai to be the hub for all those entrepreneurs and startups who are eager to learn blockchain and also implement it here in Dubai. That's why we launched a blockchain challenge. This year we are running the 3rd cycle of this challenge. With more than 275% increasing in number of applications. We started with 75, and now we reached to more than 700 applications who applied for this challenge. I hope that you visit us in April during the Global Blockchain Summit, where this challenge will take place. And also the 3rd pillar, which is thought leader in blockchain. One of the elements or initiatives we implement is the Global Blockchain Summit. Last year, we were targeting to receive 3,000 attendees. It was more than 8,000 attendees, and this year the target is 14,000 attendees to attend under one roof to listen from thought leaders around blockchain. But not only this, in 2017, we won a prestigious award in Barcelona, the World Congress of Smart Cities, as the best strategy in blockchain. Spanning across these 3 sectors, we don't work alone. We work with our strategic partners in the government sector, but also in the private sector. We partnered with DO to develop a digital backbone platform for the city, wherein we can publish our big data, but also implement the blockchain on top of that platform.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So we've seen the very exciting use cases that blockchain is already spawning, both in the financial sector and in the government sector. I'd like now to focus a bit on the financial sector, and specifically how we've seen how it has introduced efficiencies both in trade finance and in cross-border payments. But the question is, in order to really unlock the full potential of blockchain in the financial sector, both in these applications and others, what's standing in the way? What steps can be taken, particularly with regulation, to make these use cases and others more effective? Maybe Nelson, from the perspective of the HKMA.
Yeah, the HKMA is a central bank of Hong Kong and also the bank regulator. I've been there with HKMA for 15 years. Most of my time before I joined this role, I'm a bank supervisor. So the answer is probably ourselves, which is the stance of the financial regulators are crucial for innovation. Especially in the past, I still remember maybe we're considered to be sitting on the opposite side of the banks because we are the regulators, right? So very often banks may not be too willing to innovate or try new things. But I think this is technology, as many speakers has mentioned, and can not only bring efficiency, but also enhance risk management, which is the objective of us to ensure safety and soundness of the financial system. So I think the first thing is the stance of the regulators. The other thing is which is related to the technology itself, because it's still evolving. A lot of the things are still uncertain. For example, on the more public blockchain, the permissionless part, the scalability issue, the transaction finality problems, the legal status of smart contract, all these has to be dealt with. And so that's why I think we are making good progress in different jurisdictions. We are trying to get our hands dirty, right? Although it's not massive introduction of blockchain, as you mentioned rightfully, blockchain cannot solve every problems. And actually, for some of the proof of concept, we believe actually a centralized model is more efficient. Whenever you have a trusted party, you don't try to trouble yourself with blockchain. So legal status, regulator stance, and the third one probably I would say when we conduct so many different proof of concepts, the governance model is important. So far, there's no kind of one silver bullet to tell you what governance model works the best. Using the trade finance project as an example, now we have 12 banks. A 12 members consortium may not be easy to handle because different people have different kind of directions and different understanding of the technology. So I think these three things are probably standing in the way.
Thank you very much. Promath, would you like to add to that?
I think before I get, I'll just to take what Excellency Dr. Aisha mentioned. I think the approach should be that it's not that blockchain can solve all the problems that we see. That will be a wrong starting point. It is any solution should bring is the economies and the efficiency at scale. So what is the kind of cost reduction that we talk about it? So specifically, if you talk about, I mentioned about the wave using on settlement. Only on using on settlement, it is not going to solve and bring down substantial cost advantage. For instance, one thing that we have seen, especially on cross-border payment, many of the currencies are not freely traded outside the home country. So it increases the cost, even if you use blockchain as a technology to do that. And your distribution cost on the last mile and the sourcing cost remains. So to me, I really bucket this into two things. Strategically, the first one is on collaboration. I think blockchain as a technology cannot exist on a standalone basis. It needs existence of a wider technological things along with that, which means that you need to look at it. I talked about the standard protocol because the biggest thing is that you've got different providers, you've got technology players, you've got industry players, regulatory expectations, a different protocol. So you need to have one standard protocol which can brings in so that you can make meaningful, scalable solutions. That's one part of collaboration. The second part of collaboration is that industry players, technology players, and regulators have to come in tandem. It's in the interest of industry that we have regulations comes enabling, and we heard that from regulators in the panel. It's in the interest of regulators to we see that the private practice also comes into tandem to do that. So it's a collaboration is a very important thing, because if you want to get a scale, you cannot do it without being regulated. You need regulation coming in place. Without being regulated, you can't attain the scale of to do that. That's what we saw with cryptos and other things, which is not really getting the scalability and traction. The second to me is practical. This is again a practical experience has been. One other thing that we're struggling specifically on hiring talent and education perspective of getting enough blockchain-based product technology engineers. So what you get on technology side is largely system integrators, but to really get someone to make sure that that's a policy reform, which on a medium to long term, we can't solve it on a short-term basis, on a policy reform on educational basis, to look at, to produce product engineers who have got blockchain expertise much beyond the system integration. I mean, that are the two things I will see that it can structurally and on long term can bring sustainable solution.
Thank you very much. I think an essential feature of the financial system of the future will be its inclusiveness. We live in a world today where more than, I'd say, hundreds of millions of people are really excluded from the formal financial sector. The World Bank has recently said that something like 1.7 or 1.8 billion people globally still lack a formal bank account. So technologies such as blockchain have the potential, I think, to help address this problem and provide for a more inclusive financial sector. But I would like to ask some of our panelists where they see the financial sector 5 to 10 years from now, and how can blockchain, perhaps in tandem with other technologies, serve to realize a vision of a more inclusive financial sector? Therese.
Yes. So financial inclusion and developing financial services is important to the World Bank. We have as our twin goals eliminating extreme poverty and promoting shared prosperity. And I'm very optimistic about the future, about the growth and development in reaching those that are unbanked and bringing and improving financial inclusion for a couple of reasons. We have all seen how blockchain has propelled people and organizations from different backgrounds from all over the world to come together and work together, collaborate to solve problems with a sense of common purpose. We see this here in Dubai for the World Government Summit. And I also had the privilege of being in Davos recently, where it was minus 16 Celsius, but I'm Canadian, I was able to handle it. And I was attending blockchain events alongside the World Economic Forum. And again, a lot of people were getting together to talk about increasing financial inclusion. And some of the things that we talked about, there's a couple of hurdles, right? One of them, which we touched upon, is the fact that we have estimates of 1 billion people who don't have official proof of identity. And so having identity is one key hurdle that we need to overcome to provide that so that you can move forward with financial inclusion. So this is going to require, of course, comprehensive legal and regulatory frameworks. As we've mentioned, it's not just the technology, but these regulatory frameworks that will protect data, bring privacy and security, which of course is critical before you put information, very personal information, on a platform, electronic platform in blockchain. The other key hurdle to overcome and to address is the high cost of financial transactions, which is out of reach for many people around the world. And so we're seeing how blockchain has the potential to bring efficiencies and therefore reduce cost of things like cross-border payments and remittances. So this is why I'm optimistic. There's still a lot of hurdles to overcome, but as I mentioned, with the collaboration, I think we will get there.
Thank you. Pramod,
I think
how optimistic are you? And
I'm very optimistic. In fact, I'm very happy from the numbers that you mentioned about the World Bank statistics. You're talking about 20-25% of the world don't have access to the financial system at this point of a time. I'm excited with half glass full, because if you wind back 10 years back, that number was 50%. Because as an industry which is working very closely with the unbanked, we understand the importance. It has substantially progressed from where it is. So the problem of financial inclusion at this point of time, what we have seen is not about access. So if you look at it now, for example, now some of the markets, large markets like China, India, parts of Africa, 80% of the people have got access to bank or mobile accounts. So access is not the issue. It's not a structural large issue. The issue is about the usage of those financial products and services. How meaningful those products and services is making a change in the quality of life of those who are financially excluded. Because most of those accounts are inactive in nature at this point of in time. They are not able to access the basic credit requirement which they want to get into that. Or, that is the kind of a thing which is the next problem. I think technology like blockchain should attempt to do that. So that's again, it's exactly as my earlier speaker was mentioning, it's a question of ecosystem. It's not one thing, it is a combination of many things which should go unsolved. And public, and the regulatory and the government things, and we are interestingly seeing, Smart Dubai is one such, and we have seen the announcement between Central Bank of UAE and Saudi Monetary Authority working on a common digital coin. So these are all great structural reforms where private could lean towards and use those, bring down the cost exactly where, for example, I can speak from a global remittance perspective, transferring money globally is 8.5% globally, but whereas we are in a region like in Middle East, which is at 1.5%, 2%. So we can definitely bring meaningful changes into do that, use those cost advantages, and think beyond access. Access is not the biggest problem at this point of a time. How can we make it financially literate? Literacy is the biggest problem that we have. And how can we make sure that this access is helping them to solve the problem so that many of those accounts not become redundant, becomes active use, and make a life change for those financially excluded.
Thank you very much, Pramod. It's very interesting. Perhaps we can move now from the financial sector to the government sector. Your Excellency, you've already painted the many exciting uses that Dubai is making of blockchain. But one of the most interesting to me is the Dubai paperless strategy. And I'd like to ask you to share with us what the paperless strategy consists of. Secondly, how blockchain is being used to realize its objective. And third, what can government do to unlock the potential of blockchain in examples like the paperless strategy?
Just last week, we were giving an update for His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed, who is our chairman also in Smart Dubai. And I was telling him, Your Highness, for the last 3 years, we were trying to convince people to use smart solutions. But they will come back to us asking us, okay, what does it mean smart? Anything can be smart today. So we thought into converting the word smart into something meaningful for people. And if you go and ask anyone who is dealing with a government with many transactions, he will tell you that every time I go to a government organization, they will ask me for some papers and documents. So I said, let us cut these documents to force government entities to use the solutions that already been invested in their own organization. And from here, the paperless strategy being born. We want Dubai to be, as a government, paperless in 2021, December 12. His Highness wants us to celebrate the last transacted document in the government by December 2021. This is an easy task because Dubai today already is smart with all these implementation around blockchain, AI, and also the automations happen since 17 years here in Dubai and UAE. But believe me, this is not an easy task. There is a full pillar around technology that we need to cut papers internally and externally for government entities. They should cut internally so that there aren't any papers being distributed among us as an employees to force us to use those solutions that are already embedded in our day-to-day activities, but also to cut down all the documents that transacted to the citizens and visitors to our city. This is an easy job. But what I believe is a really difficult job is the legislations. Today, many of the government entities, they will tell us, okay, we would love to use these solutions. But the thing is, part of my legal issuance as an organization, it's written that a person needs to come physically to my organization, or physically to sign a document, or physically to provide me with his passport or authentication documents. So here where we need to also revamp the legislative framework in our cities and in our governments to allow us to adapt all these new technologies. And the most difficult part, which is our third pillar, change management. Today, we are blessed again in Dubai that we have most of the population are young and they are tech savvy, they want to use all these solutions. But us as government, we are still holding to all these old solutions and old systems. We want to see the stamp in our documents. We want to see the real signature in these documents. So also we focus into how to change the cultures inside our organization and also educate people around us how to utilize these solutions. You asked me how we would use blockchain. As I said, whenever there is an applicable use case to implement blockchain, we are adopting it. Just last year, end of last year, we implemented the digital identity for the whole nation, not only Dubai, wherein you can authenticate yourself, but also there's a digital signatory functionality in that tool. And here also we are now studying what will be the right solution for blockchain to be implemented in this component. Maybe using blockchain in the NYC component also. So all of these are experimentals and pilots are running under the paperless strategy where blockchain can help us in accelerating this implementation. Plus also blockchain will help us from the front end perspective wherein we deal with the customers, with citizens, how these journeys can be more faster, easier, safer, seamless when it comes to transactions.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Tadej, from the World Bank's perspective, what can governments do to unlock blockchain's full potential?
Yes, great. First of all, I think government is well positioned to set policies and legal regulatory frameworks that encourage innovation rather than impede it, as well as that enhance inclusivity, but at the same time protecting consumers. So I think that's one area where governments are well positioned and can, of course, consult with other participants, be it industry or international organizations, etc. I think the second thing is I think it's important for governments to invest in research and understanding the technology, whether it's blockchain or other fintech technologies. It's important to understand the risks and the opportunities that this can bring and what use cases it applies. And really the best way to do that is, like you were saying, get your hands dirty, is to actually do real implementation and deployment. And the third thing I would say is governments can provide the leadership, the vision and the strategy to bring fintech and blockchain into development and identify some of the key challenges as well as what are the priorities. And I think with all of this, one of the important points is to take action and actually do pilots and deploy the use of blockchain. Because it's easy to say, it's our human nature to say, well, we don't have all the answer, we don't know how it's all going to work out. But if you wait for the perfect solution, you're not going to take action. And if you do that, you're missing out on opportunities to learn the foundational pieces of knowledge which you can build upon. If I look at the World Bank, when we issued the bond, we kept the cash flows out of the blockchain. And the reason for that was because we didn't see a solution that was in place. And so we still went ahead with the project because otherwise we still today would be trying to figure out the broad solution. And so we took a measured approach. And I think if governments do all of these things, the frameworks, understanding the technology, providing the leadership, and taking action in a measured approach, I think that will help unlock the use of blockchain.
Thank you very much.
I might add to your point here, and that's what we did exactly in Dubai. A full team from Smart Dubai, they sat there and they studied all these use cases. We had more than 50 use cases and go down into 20 use cases, but it wouldn't happen without the lead from our side, bringing all the stakeholders around the table, from government, from private sector, to identify the real use cases that can be implemented as a pilot and later on to be scaled. Otherwise, it will be so difficult just to see it as an ambitious vision to have a blockchain implemented in our city without a real influence and leadership from our side.
And I just want to add, it's easy to react to things that come your way.
Yes.
And start doing things as opposed to taking a step back and understanding what you want to achieve. And so I think what you're describing is a great approach.
Thank you. We have just a few minutes left for this panel, but I think I would be remiss if we didn't. We've been talking about the good stuff, all the good things about blockchain, but I think maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the bad things. What are the risks that blockchain poses? And I'd like to ask Nelson and then Her Excellency if they could share with us in a few minutes what they see as some of the principal risks and what can be done to address them. Nelson,
Sure.
from your perspective.
I think we all know that distributed ledger technology will replicate the ledger to all participants, and so cybersecurity risk will be the one of that. And it actually, well, blockchain could be very safe depending on how you implement it, and how much information you keep on chain and how much information you keep off chain. So I think with the distributed ledger, you increase the attack surface, because in the old days in the centralized system you protect only one single place, but now you have to figure out what information you need to protect in other locations. So cyber risk is, I believe, is the biggest one. So the details about the implementation is key. How much information you share within the chain and how much encryption you employ.
Thank you.
I would say the implementation by itself is a risk for us. First of all, if I implemented my own blockchain platform, it will be a waste of money. I need other stakeholders to be part of that platform. But here another risk will come. Okay, who will pay with me financing this platform? They will start sharing data. Who owns these data? Who can run the network? If a new partner will join this platform, how can he pay his fees to use this facility? So we need to put a proper governing around implementing blockchain platform, and that's what we are doing today in Dubai, preparing a full blockchain policy around the implementation, which will be launched very soon, inshallah.
Yeah, I have a lot to share offline, because the E-Trade Connect project is 100% funded by the banks themselves. We only do the prototype, the POC stage, because what we think is, if you ask the market that the central bank will fund it, they will ask for 10 and 20 projects. Whether it's viable, it's a different story. So I think the best way is to get them to fund the project. Then it's a higher possibility of being more viable.
Thank you. I think we have time for one question from the audience. Do we have any questions? Please.
Yes, actually, the first blockchain implementation in Dubai was by a startup. We do have a future accelerator in Dubai that the government entities participate. And it was our first coherent, and that accelerator is to implement a blockchain application. It was around reconciliation and settlement of our bank accounts. And it was a local startup, and today we are scaling it across the whole government. More than 62 government entities will use that platform. And not only this, by having the challenge here happening in Dubai, the blockchain challenge, we are attracting many of these startups who later on, after finishing that challenge, start to see many implementable spaces for them to implement their solutions in Dubai, whether it be in education sector or health sector.
Let me just conclude by saying that I think we've learned a great deal in this last hour about the enormous potential of blockchain. We've seen what's already happening, but I think we've also been given a glimpse of a very exciting future. But I think we've also seen that it's a future that is not without risks. As has just been pointed out, this strategy or this road to the digital economy is really not risk-free. But perhaps I think it's important to remember and to note, as our panelists have noted, that governments do have an important role to play in making and unlocking the potential of blockchain moving forward by creating an enabling environment, by using blockchain themselves when appropriate, by putting in place effective regulation, and ensuring that risks like cyber risk are really properly addressed. What's also clear is that cooperation, both between government and the private sector, and globally will be essential. So please join me in thanking our panelists for what has been a fascinating discussion.